Hello everyone and welcome to the quarterfinals of the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge in a first game from the match Magnus Carlsen versus Wesley. But before we check out the game, and it is a very nice game, I would just like to thank and congratulate everyone for joining the Friday arenas. So here are the winners of the both Medal Arena and the AGADMATOR Friday Arena. So just a very short shout out to AGADMATOR 2, Pansarak, Christy 906, those are the three people that won the Medal Arena. And in the top 10 we have Chess World 1612, Manali Rathod, Blindfold Chess All Day, Bouvet King, Vange, Coolio, and Randomized Gambit. And in the AGADMATOR Friday Arena, which is the main event, FIDE Master Super GM1 won the tournament with a very nice performance of 2408 and also a 77% berserk rate. Then we have I am Mate Checkmate from Poland, not from the Czech Republic, Anui 1432, so those are the top three. FIDE Master Jonas MB, we have Yupo 610, Palanquin, Stalemate 9, Patralgan, Dev 789, and Samalev in 10th place. So thank you all for joining, and like I said, congratulations to the winners, and we'll be seeing you hopefully next Friday as well, and every Friday after that Friday. Just in case, if you're wondering, will there be more tournaments? Yes, there will. So getting back to the game, it's Magnus versus Wesley, and the game follows a game Magnus already played against Ding Liren in the Sinquefield Cup 2019. But we're gonna talk a bit more about that. So Magnus opens with the d4, we have knight f6 by Wesley, c4, e6, and now knight to c3, inviting the Nimzo-Indian defense, and Wesley goes for it. We have bishop to b4, so the Nimzo-Indian defense is on the board. We have knight f3 and castles by Wesley. Bishop to g5, and now c5, striking in the center, and rook to c1 by Magnus. Just developing if there is any more pressure on that knight on c3, it will be defended, and c captures on d4. Now we have knight captures on d4 and h6. So here you don't have to capture, you can go back to h4, which is exactly what Magnus does, and now d5. So these are all pretty much standard developing moves for the Nimzo-Indian defense. C captures on d5, and now before recapturing, you don't want to capture with the pawn, you want to capture with the queen, but before doing that, first g5. Bishop to g3, and only now queen captures on d5, as the knight on c3 is pinned, and also you already have a threat of just queen captures on a2, because the knight will not be able to capture that also. So e3, Magnus just continues development. We have queen captures on a2, and now queen to c2, guarding the b2 pawn, and next you want to develop your bishop, castle kingside, hopefully, and so on. So here, this is the exact same position that Magnus had against the Ding in the 2019 Sinquefield Cup that ended in a draw. Where knight to d5 was played by Ding, and the game just continued. Ding continued adding more pressure, and the game ended in a draw. However, here Wesley goes for bishop captures on c3. It's a new move in the position, so already as of move 12 we have a completely new game. And now you don't want to capture with the pawn to allow a queen trade, so we have queen captures on c3, and now knight to e4. Wesley adds another piece into the attack, now pressuring both the bishop and the queen here. So queen back to c2, and now queen to a5 with check. And now you don't really have ways of blocking, since the knight covers both c3 and d2. So basically what you can do is move the king, which is what Carlsen does. King to e2, and we reach the position from the thumbnail. So it looks very weird having a king on e2 with your bishop still undeveloped. There's no way to castle. Looks very dangerous for white, but the problem is black doesn't have any pieces in the game. So if he can bring more pieces into the attack, will be very good for black, of course. The problem is you don't have time for something like b6 and bishop a6 check, since the knight on e4 is hanging. And while you could defend it with f5, then white is very happy with just kicking it away. f3, the knight goes away, and let's say king f2, bringing the king to safety, or if you trade, let's say, captures, then white is also just happy getting a nice semi-open h-file for the rook. So here, after king to e2, we have knight captures on g3 by Wesley, not interested in weakening the position just yet. H captures on g3, opening up the rook's attack to the pawn, and now king to g7 defending. And now Magnus just continues attacking with f4. Also, this makes room for the king on e2, which will allow you to develop your bishop and so on, and the white king should be very safe here. Wesley still needs to develop his pieces. So bishop to d7, Wesley starts doing just that. Now if knight c6 captures, you will be able to recapture with the bishop, for example. And now Magnus finds a very interesting idea of how to mix it up. He plays b4. b4 with the idea that if queen captures, of course, you can bring the rook to b1, put pressure on b7. However, there's more to it than meets the eye. Wesley could just go back with queen to d8, he could go queen to a3, he could just move the queen, but he accepts the challenge, saying that, okay, if rook to b1, I don't mind about you capturing the b7 pawn, it's not a problem, I'm going to play queen a4, offer a queen trade here. It's just going to be a very comfortable game for me. However, Magnus goes f captures on g5. And now if h captures, then while it is very unpleasant, it is possible to play it, even though you get you allow queen to h7, rook to h7 and such ideas, but the king can run to e7. But it's not the most pleasant thing to allow. So Wesley instead goes rook to c8 first. He wants to get rid of the queen from the c file. Also, if the queen moves somewhere weird, then just rook captures on c1 is an idea. Problem is, Magnus goes g captures on h6 with check. We have king to h8, and now as weird as it is, black is completely lost here now. So feel free to pause the video and try to figure out why black is lost while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting that, well, you don't really need the queen here. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen captures on c8 with check. So Wesley has to capture the queen. We have bishop captures, and now rook captures on c8 again with check. King to h7, only move that makes sense, otherwise you have to give up the queen. And now another excellent move by Magnus, knight back to f3. Of course, the hardest move to find is the move with the knight back. Now just threatening knight to g5 check, which will force the king to move, and then h7, h8 will just win the game. So of course Wesley prevents this. We have f6, not allowing any jumps for the knight, and now king f2, preparing to put the king to safety with king to g1, but also you can just block all the checks with bishop to e2. So queen to b2 check, and now Magnus has to decide whether he goes back or he blocks. He decides to block, both is very much playable. And now the problem is it's hard to find a move for black. There are no checks, there are no ways of how to increase the pressure. You could try something like e5 for some reason, but then just rook to c7 check will be very strong. King to h8, and now just knight h4. Once knight g6 check lands, then h7, h8 just win the game. So here Wesley decides that he needs to try at least something, so he goes knight to a6. He gives up the rook on a8, but at least he will be able to bring the knight into the game, maybe pose some problems for the white king. So Magnus accepts, rook captures on a8, and now knight to c5, going for knight to e4 with check. But now rook to d1. If knight to d4 check, then you can just move the king, and it's not going to be a problem. But it is very interesting because that's exactly what happens. Knight e4 check, king g1, and now Wesley figures out that well, it just might not be possible to capture the bishop, because if you capture the bishop, then you get rook d7 check, and you are in a forced checkmate. King captures on h6, rook to h8 check, you have to go back, king g6, now comes knight to h4 check, king g5, and rook to g7 is checkmate, as all of these squares are nicely covered by the pawn and knight. So Wesley cannot capture the bishop. He goes for f5, maybe tries to create some room for his king if the knight moves, but now bishop to d3. Of course, now you don't allow the capture of the bishop. We have queen to f2 check by Wesley, king to h1, and now comes queen captures on e3, grabbing some material back, but it's not enough. So for the last time, feel free to pause the video and win the game for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting that you need to free this file for the rook. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, yes, bishop captures on e4 is the only winning move here for white. So you cannot afford to waste any time or allow any knight f2 check, knight g3 check. And now you don't have any more material. White has 2 rooks, a bishop, and a knight. And if you don't capture, sorry, if you don't capture the bishop, there is not much to be done here. So Wesley indeed captured the bishop, but now it's rook to d7 check. And now there's not much to be done here. If you capture here, it's all the same. The rook still comes into the game with rook to h8, but we could show it like captures rook to h8 check. And you have to also be careful of the knight jumps. King to g6, you're gonna go rook to g8 with check, king to f6, now rook to f8 with check. If he goes back, king to g6, now you finally get knight to e5 check, and slowly but surely you will checkmate the black king. If king goes here, then you can let's say try rook to g7 check, and now it's not very pleasant. King h6, you have to prevent checkmate, rook f to f7, and now there's not much to be done here. It's checkmate whatever you do. You could try giving one check, but let's say queen e1 check, king here, and now there's nothing to be done. You could start pushing the pawn, but then it's just mate. Rook to g6 check, king has to move, and now this will be checkmate, of course. So it's not all that difficult for Wesley to figure out that this leads to checkmate, so he tries king to g6, but now Magnus just goes rook to g8 with check, and it was in this position on move 33 that Wesley so resigned the game, and a very nice victory for Magnus, as there is nothing more to be done here. So the idea is similar. After you move the king, king f6, you're gonna go rook f8 check, king g6, and now again knight to e5 check, bringing you to a similar line. Of course, you don't have to capture the pawn. You can go king h5, but then the pawn just wins by promoting. h7, h8, queen wins on the next move. So yeah, Wesley resigned, and a very nice victory for Magnus, who takes the lead in their match. So yeah, this was game 1. I do hope you enjoyed it. We're probably going to cover some other games from the match as well. I would like to thank Tony Moll at guitar, David Burns, Jeremy Williams, David Morgulis, and Lorenzo Tessiore for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge, checking up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. And once again, congratulations to everyone who joined and played and won the Friday Arena. So yeah, thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your Sunday.